We're going to see big leaps in gaming in 2024 as a result of AI, starting with AI NPCs, where you're going to be able to walk up to characters in video games, and the conversation you have with that character is a complete unique conversation because it's using a large language model to have that conversation with you.
So ever since I watched Matt Wolf's video on the 2024 future of AI, I haven't been able to stop thinking about AI in video games. I think what really excites people about it is this idea of having a huge open world RPG with a super advanced type of memory. For example, if you take something like Skyrim, all the NPCs in the game, they have a couple different conditionals they look for, and they do have some memory of things that you have and haven't done. Like if you're like a leader of a faction, or if you have a bounty, or if you've assaulted them before. But what would happen if we could go much, much further than that? What if they could literally remember everything you did? What if they could remember the entire interaction? What if they also had history of the interactions you've had with people that are important to them? And then imagine if we got rid of dialogue trees. What if instead of having 3 options, you could literally type or speak what you wanted to say to this character, and they have to respond to it? But of course, we don't just care about how players interact with other NPCs, we'd also care about how NPCs interact with the world, and how the playable character plays with the world. Instead of having a laundry list of potions and poison that you can create, let's say instead you hand a bunch of herbs to like a witch outside of town, and she mixes it together, and the game just kind of calculates something that would be reasonable with the alchemical effects of these ingredients. Or, let's say you're on a quest to save a dying man, and he needs a potion. And instead of that potion, you give him some sort of, like, I don't know, diseased meat. And so maybe he makes it home, but then he dies later because he's got some sort of food sickness. Anyway, these are all just basic ideas of things that could potentially be in the future of video games. It would be really cool to make a fantasy RPG like this that has this AI development where the world is completely immersive and you can do and say and act however the hell you want. But there's one small problem with it. Even if you made every single other NPC in, say, Skyrim completely static, and you had one that was designed like this, your computer would just crash up and probably burn in a fire immediately. I'm not some computing expert, I'm not some super whiz at this, but it doesn't take a genius to say that this requires an extreme amount of computing power. But that doesn't stop the fact that this technology has to start somewhere. And I think I've come up with a really cool video game idea that could start as kind of like the branching point. So I will note that this game is absolutely kind of basic. It's actually something you could probably pin down and make into a text-based game, honestly, if you didn't care about image generation. But that's kind of the point. So anyway, let's get into it. So I just wanted to draw up my idea really quick in Paint, but essentially what I'm talking about here is just having a simple two-hub world, where in one world you have a free interaction with an NPC, and in the other one it will generate a town environment, and this town is informed by the interactions that you've had with the NPC. So let's say for the first world, it's just you and this NPC, and everything else is pretty much static. You can put it in whatever environment you want, but this is kind of like an informed chat GPT. It's playing a character, you're playing a character, but you can choose to interact with this thing however you want, basically. And the game will recognize and store this information about the things you chose to talk about, how you chose to treat them, and that will inform how it interacts with Hub 2 in the town. So let's say that it has a loading screen for a minute or two, so that it can load up what's going to be in the town. And then you don't want to be too crazy about what happens in the town, but we can influence maybe a little thing about how it looks a little bit, but then also have spawnable objects. You also don't want to introduce crazy mechanics in this world, because it would kind of eat away at things and probably take away from the core focus. We're probably trying to just make an experience instead of like an actual gameplay for this first one. So in terms of gameplay, what we pretty much just want to go for is a simple yes or no binary. The best way I can think of it is if we spawn an object based on the conversations we've had. We choose to take it or we choose not to take it. And for the concept of the game, we would do this kind of back and forth 10 times where NPC, town, and what we do in the town informs the NPC, and what we do with the NPC informs the town. We have this generative back and forth 10 times, see where we end up. I really like this simple concept, and again, I do think if you had the know-how, you could create a ChatGPT API and probably make this game without any image generation. But I've got an idea that does have some very basic animation, so I'm not sure if my idea informed this concept or if my concept informed the idea. But I do have just kind of like a stupid little gimmicky idea that I think fits really well in this. So let's say we are a character in the forest and we run into a baby. So we're starting out with this new novel concept. We can talk with the baby, say whatever we want to, we can slap it around, we can be real sweet to it, coddle it. But we know it's a baby, we know what it needs. It needs food, water. And so we go into the hub 2, which would be our town. We go back in and we basically go into a shop with shelves, with generative objects. And you can take whatever you want from the store. You just have to walk through, decide if you want to take it back to the baby or not. And this can be a very kind of metropolitan, plain-looking town for the first one. And for the first hub, the baby, just your generic stock photo baby, right? For the second level, based on what you brought the baby will change. If you did not bring it food or water, maybe for a couple levels, maybe it dies and your game's over right then and there because you did not feed the baby. But let's say that you got it protein. Let's say you brought the baby protein powder, right? Well, maybe the baby's swole now and it's gotten a lot stronger. But then you can say, well, what else can we do about the town? And how can we get it to spawn objects? Well, we're gonna have an aggressive sort of aging process, and the twist is gonna be that the baby's actually some sort of demon. So as the baby kind of grows up and it learns to speak, maybe it starts asking for more and more kind of sinister things. Maybe it wants gasoline and lighters, or drugs, or weapons, and you have a choice on, one, obviously how you're talking to the baby is going to affect its behavior and attitude towards you, but also it'll influence the town itself. So let's say you feed the baby these evil desires that it has, and you give it the stuff that it wants. Well, maybe that makes the town, like, more red. Or, you know, as the world's kind of turning to doom, is looking more and more apocalyptic. But these are kind of just spitball ideas, and I think there's a couple different kind of ways that you can conclude this. Obviously, we can have visual changes, but we would want kind of a stopping point. So I think 10 levels was actually pretty good here. We'll age the baby 10 times, and then at the 10, it's, you know, it's the full-grown demon, human, angel spawn, whatever. But I think you can kind of generate maybe 10 or 20 different endings, depending on how you behave. So maybe there's the chance where you're kind of just subservient to it, and the world ends in apocalypse, and you get a little cutscene at the end. Or maybe you're super sweet to it, and it treats you nice, and you kind of change its heart, and it becomes a savior of the world. Or maybe you're a total dickhead, and it smashes you, and you're the first one to die in the apocalypse. Or maybe you're actually the thing that makes it extra evil, and it makes you its, like, henchman, or it's kind of like its dark father or whatever. It would be cool if later generations of this game, you could actually interact in the Hub 2 world more. If you could choose to do evil acts on its behalf, or you could lead by example and, you know, help grandma with the groceries to show it how to be a good person. But for now, I think it makes sense to just have it as a simple yes-no, interact with the object, take it back to the baby, or don't. But anyway, that's just my idea for the world's first AI generative game. What do you think? Pretty cool concept, right? Give me your thinkies down below. Let me know what you think, and I will hopefully see you for the next one.